You're listening to the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast with Chicago attorney Dave Scriven-Young. This podcast is brought to you by Anchor, which is the app that I use to record and edit the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, so let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 224 of the Lawyer Lifestyle Podcast for June 10th, 2020. My name is Dave Scriven-Young, an attorney from Chicago, Illinois, and I'll be your host. This podcast takes you on a daily journey to discover key principles in the areas of marketing, sales, and leadership for attorneys. So we're continuing on with some of the obstacles that we face to having a diverse team. And that's whether we're talking about our law firm or any organization or any team that we're putting together. And the next two, I think, are actually opposites of each other. And so I wanted to put them in the same podcast because I think they relate. And this is from John C. Maxwell's book, Leadershift. So the first is arrogance. So arrogance is an obstacle that we often face. And arrogance is where we look down on everyone else. That we believe that, as lawyers, if we have sort of made it up the chain, made it up the ranks, if you will, that we've been there, done that we've gotten to this place in our firm and our lives for a reason, and that makes us arrogantly look down on others, and it prevents us from appreciating others, especially those who are different from us. And oftentimes we see people who are so confident in themselves that they can't imagine other people adding value to their work. They can't imagine that somebody else may have a better idea, a different idea, something that where someone can contribute. And I see this all the time with respect to attorneys. I've been at 3 different firms, and I would say the one thing that that I've seen throughout the firms is that you find arrogant people who don't believe that anyone else has a better idea than them, that they believe that their way is the way that should be followed, and it doesn't matter what anyone else says. And I've also seen people who, although they pretend to say, yes, I want to hear other voices, they actually affirmatively shut those people out. And so arrogance is a big part of that. Now, on the other hand, you have that a opposite concept, I believe, which is that personal insecurities actually prevent team diversity as well. And this is people who are threatened by the possibility that someone else would have a better idea than them, and therefore they are going to keep others away, keep others out. So if they believe that a diverse person could have a better idea than them, they're not going to include them on the team. And so these are sort of opposite concepts because you have one person who's very confident and the other person who is not, but the result is the same. Is that either, the arrogant person may not do this on purpose, but the personally insecure person definitely does. They keep people out who are different from them, who may have a different idea, who may have something to contribute. And so the antidote to both of these personalities, if you will, is to remember that it's not all about you, right? That the goal here is not to make yourself feel good. The goal is not to aggrandize yourself for everyone to look at you and see, how good you are, how good you look, how smart you are. But it's to, as lawyers, we have an obligation to our clients. We have an obligation to the justice system. And so it's not about the individual lawyer. It's not about, who looks good and who looks bad. It's whether your client is able to succeed, whether your client is represented well, either on the defense or on the plaintiff side. And so what's the most important thing that we can do as lawyers is making sure that there are lots of different voices on your team to make sure that your client is represented in the best way possible. I mean, I've seen it so many times where lawyers get it's like they put on blinders and they have a particular way that they want something done, a particular way that they want to do something, and a particular strategy, and it may not be the best strategy, but because they have put other people aside, or only have on their team yes men or yes women who are going to do what they want and not question it, then the assignment or the representation might go sideways because of something that was missed. The other thing I can tell you is, having been at 3 different firms and, in junior positions, now I'm in a more, senior position at my firm. But as a very junior lawyer, it makes a big difference the way that that young associates are treated. Because if you're a young associate and you don't feel like your voice matters, or that your the partner who's running a case doesn't want to hear opposing voices or a questioning voice, then that young associate learns pretty quickly not to speak up. They're not going to speak up in client meetings. They're not going to speak up in attorney strategy sessions. They're pretty much going to put their head down and do work because they know if they stick their head up, they know that if they want to voice an opposing view, that they're going to get shot down, that they're going to get yelled at, they're going to get cursed out, that something's going to happen to them. And so they learn very well, this guy does not want to hear an opposing voice, so don't even bother. And I think that's what happens to a lot of diverse people as well. And that's where, a lot of the anger comes from. I think the anger comes from the fact that, people's voices are not being heard, that they're being silenced. And it's because of these 2 reasons. Either because someone is so arrogant that they, don't believe that anyone could have a better opinion. Or on the other hand, they're so insecure that they are afraid that someone is going to have a better opinion than them, that the diverse voices are silenced. And so whether we're talking about, racism generally, or police brutality and the riots and the protests that have occurred, or if we're just talking about people in your law firm, whether that's young people, people of color, people with disabilities, people with a different gender identity or sexual orientation, what we're really talking about is making sure that you provide them with a voice. Because if you don't, 2 things will happen. Either they're going to leave. Well, 3 things. They're going to leave because they're so fed up. Number 2, they are going to be so passive aggressive that it ends up damaging the firm's morale and culture. Or number 3, they're just going to remain silent, and you're going to, even though they know that you're doing something wrong, or at least they can sense that you're doing something wrong, and so then you veer into a wrong strategy. You veer into an area where you shouldn't be in because you have your blinders on and because you're shutting out the other voices. So I think what we have to remember as leaders is, we have to remember what the goal is. The goal is not to make ourselves feel better or to make ourselves look good, but it's to make sure that our client is being represented in the best way possible. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we build a diverse team. So for your daily action item, I want you to think about, where you are on this arrogance to, personally insecure balance. I doubt that if you're an arrogant person, if you're listening to this podcast, because, you wouldn't want to listen to another voice, right? So you're probably not an arrogant person, so you're probably, a little, off of that scale. But I want you to think about, do you intentionally go out of your way to try to get a diverse perspective? And again, diverse, I think most people think about, they think about ethnicity, they think about race, but there's a lot of other things that go into a diverse perspective other than just those two things. And so do you go out of your way to ensure that you have a diverse perspective on your team? And if not, why do you think that is? And what can you do to counteract that, either in your firm or in an organization or pretty much any team that you have? So that's your daily action item for today. And I do invite you to join in the discussion. You can leave me a voicemail by going to anchor.fm/attorneydsy and hitting that message button. You can leave me a comment for me to play on the show or a question for me to answer. You can also leave me a comment or question on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at AttorneyDSY. I'm also on LinkedIn on my personal profile. So please let me know if you have any comments about this episode. Tell me what you think about this podcast, or give me a topic you'd like to hear about. This podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, and Anchor, so please be sure to subscribe and rate and review. Tonight is the night for the Lawyers Emotional Intelligence Book Club. We're going to be talking about The Stress Solution by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, specifically on how eating and the way that you eat can reduce your stress. That's going to be tonight at 7 p.m. Central, June 10th, 2020. And you can find out more, of course, and we will go live at facebook.com/lawyerseq. Have a great day or night, and remember to fight for the lifestyle that you want and become the rainmaker that you need to be.